Part 1. The Banishment and the Bill. I was banned from my own son's wedding, but 2 days later, I received an invoice for $1.7 million, complete with a thank you note for still being useful on their big day. The rain started that afternoon. Its insistent drumming on the rusted metal roof of my house created the monotonous rhythm that usually brought me peace. But today was different. I sat in my cramped living room, holding a glass of iced sweet tea that had long gone cold, staring at the large cream-colored envelope on the old wooden table. My house is simple, half wood, half drywall, with peeling paint. It's located on a tight, working-class street in a rougher part of Philadelphia, where the smell of wet asphalt and damp earth always seeps in through the door cracks when it rains. Above the small bookcase, a black and white photograph of my wife, Mrs. Evelyn Miller, is still displayed in a plain wooden frame. Her smile is eternal there, as if she still watches over me every day. My name is Raiden Miller, 64 years old, a retired foreman from a construction crew. My last big job was on the new bridge connecting Jersey City to Manhattan. My body simply couldn't handle heavy lifting or standing too long in the sun anymore. I've been living alone since 2014. Evelyn passed away from cancer. We tried everything, but fate had other plans. Now, I live off my small pension and the rent from a tiny storefront my parents left me. It's enough for groceries, utilities, and occasional medication. Nothing more. My son, Ethan Miller, is now 32. He lives in a supposedly luxurious condo in New York City. I've never been there. He's never invited me. His fiancée is named Annalise Thompson, a woman from a wealthy family. Her father owns several high-end car dealerships and a major real estate firm. I know this from a nosy neighbor who loves to check social media. My relationship with Ethan started to drift after his mother died. It wasn't sudden, but a slow process, like water seeping out of a cracked bucket. He used to come home, though rarely, but gradually the phone calls became fewer. Until one night in 2016, he called me and said in a cold voice, "If you had been more successful, maybe Mom could have been treated at a better hospital." That sentence pierced my chest like a rusty nail. I didn't know how to respond. After that, our communication became minimal. He was busy with his career, his new life, a world he deemed more worthy. The envelope arrived this afternoon, delivered by a courier on a big clean motorcycle, wearing a sharp uniform. It was thick, on expensive paper with Ethan's handwriting, a handwriting I still recognized. I taught him to hold a pencil in the first grade, his small, trembling fingers wrapped around mine. I even smiled slightly when I received it. Perhaps this is the official wedding invitation, I thought. Although I'd heard from neighbors that the wedding date had been announced on social media a month ago, I still hoped for a special invitation for me, his father. But as I slowly opened the envelope, my hope shattered like a glass dropped onto concrete. It wasn't an invitation, nor a greeting card, nor a personal letter. What I found was a stack of papers detailing the wedding costs, neatly written, professional like a corporate financial report. There were tables, large numbers, and a total at the bottom that made my head throb. I read it slowly, trying to comprehend every line. Venue rental, White Orchid Mountain Resort in Aspen, company, 2 days for the reception and ceremony, $950,000. Exclusive catering, Japanese-American fusion menu with imported non-alcoholic wine, $450,000, honeymoon package, 7 nights at a 5-star resort suite in Maui, high, with a private pool and ocean view, $300,000. Total, $1,700,000. At the end of the last page, there was a handwritten note from Ethan. The ink was dark blue, the pen strokes firm. "After everything you've done in the past, consider this your family's way of saying thank you. Please wire the funds before November 2nd. I stared at that sentence for a long time until the letters began to blur, not because of tears, I'm too old for easy crying, but because a mixture of pure rage and humiliation gripped my chest. Thank you. For what? I work so hard my back is permanently stooped just to pay for his college. I sold my old truck to cover his mother's hospital bills. I mortgaged this house to extend her care time, which ultimately couldn't save her. And now, he says, consider this your thank you. I got up from the chair, walked to the cabinet, and picked up a small photo of Ethan from elementary school. He was standing on a playground with his favorite red baseball cap, holding my hand tightly. His smile was wide, his eyes sparkling. I remember that day he said, "Dad, don't go to work yet. I still want to play marbles with you." I went to work anyway, because if I hadn't, we wouldn't have eaten that night. Now that same son was sending me a bill, as if I were a bank he had to pay back. I sat down again, this time in the old wooden chair in the corner. This chair was an inheritance from my own father. The wood is still sturdy, though the surface is uneven. I stayed there for over an hour, listening to the rain intensify, my thoughts spinning. Anger, disappointment, confusion, degradation, all mixed into one. But slowly, something else began to surface. Something colder, calmer, sharper. Resolve. I got up, walked to the top shelf of the cabinet, and took out the old laptop I hadn't used in a long time. The screen still works, though it's slow. I turned it on, waited a few minutes for the operating system to appear, then wiped the dust from the keyboard. I opened the internet browser. My fingers trembled, not from fear, but from age and suppressed anger. I started typing slowly, Sleek Events NYC contact. This wasn't about the money. I don't have that kind of money and they know it. This was about humiliation. This was about erasure. This was about a son who saw his father only as a payment tool, not as a man who had sacrificed everything for him. I stared at the laptop screen, reading the phone number and office address of the wedding organizer handling Ethan's wedding. The company name was clearly written at the top of the invoice, Sleek Events. I picked up my old cell phone, which I rarely use for anything other than texts from neighbors or the delivery guy. I jotted down the number in the worn notebook I use for monthly expenses. Then I sat back, looking at Evelyn's photo above the cabinet. If she were alive, what would she say? Maybe she'd hug me, tell me everything would be fine. Or maybe she'd be furious at Ethan, forcing him to apologize. But Evelyn is gone, and I have to face this alone. I didn't sleep well that night. My mind was constantly turning. Every time I closed my eyes, I remembered Ethan's face as a child. Then, his face now, cold and distant. I remembered his voice on the phone that year. If you had been more successful. If they think I'm just a money machine they can pressure any time, they haven't met the man they've hurt, and they will soon. That bill wasn't just an expense, it was a final eviction. Sealed, in an expensive envelope with words implying I owed them something. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache. I only slept 3 hours, and it was full of nightmares. I dreamed Evelyn was standing in the doorway, looking at me with a sad gaze. She didn't say anything, but I knew what she felt. Disappointment, not in me, but in this situation. I sat on the edge of the bed, looking out the window at the breaking dawn. The rain had stopped, but the sky was still grey. The cold air bit into my bones. I grabbed my old robe and walked to the bathroom to wash up. The morning prayer helped me calm down a little. But as soon as I finished, my mind immediately returned to the invoice. I recalled the moments after Evelyn passed. I sold my old pickup truck, a Ford Ranger that had been with me for 20 years, just to cover the funeral costs and the remaining hospital installments. I mortgaged this house to the credit union to extend Evelyn's final days of care. I did everything I still could, even when my body wasn't as strong as it used to be. Ethan came home once, only once, on the day of the funeral. He arrived in a white shirt and black slacks. He stood in the back as his mother's casket was lowered into the ground. After the brief wake, he left immediately. He didn't stay the night. He didn't even sit down with me for dinner. One night, a few months later, he called me. His voice was flat, cold. He said, "You were too weak. Mom died because you gave up too easily." I didn't know how to answer, so I stayed silent, and then the line disconnected. Since then, we rarely talked. If we did, it was just a brief text on holidays, nothing more. That morning after the prayer, I sat in front of my old laptop again. I opened social media, something I rarely do. I never liked that world, but this time I needed to know. I typed Annalise Thompson's name into the search box. Her account immediately popped up. Her feed was full of stunning pictures, photos at aesthetic cafes, photos in front of luxury cars, photos in expensive gowns at parties, and most painfully, photos of the wedding preparations. There were photos of them in San Francisco for a pre-wedding shoot. There were photos of a brunch with her family, not me. There was a photo of the wedding venue with a caption, "Can't wait for our happiest day." One caption made my blood boil. It was written below a photo of them laughing in a fancy restaurant, "Thanks to our strong support system, including our low-key family investor." Low-key family investor. They wouldn't even refer to me as a father, just an investor. And they even used the word low-key, as if I was someone unworthy of being mentioned openly. I slammed the laptop shut. The sound echoed in the small room. My hands were shaking. Not from age, but from an anger that had crossed the line. I grabbed my phone, opened the rarely used WhatsApp application, and started noting down everything I saw on their posts. The venue name, White Orchid Mountain Resort. The caterer, Amor Valley Cuisine. The photographer, Luminous Frames. The decor company, Petal and Canvas Design. I wrote it all down in my notebook. Then I started looking up their contact numbers one by one on the internet. Some were easy to find because they had business accounts. For others, I asked through a local neighborhood WhatsApp group, pretending I was looking for vendors for an event. That afternoon, I started calling them. I didn't say I wanted to cancel anything, I just wanted to verify. I wanted to know how deep Ethan's lies had gone. The first vendor I called was Petal and Canvas Design. A man with a friendly voice answered the phone. "Good afternoon, Mr. Dennis speaking. How can I help you?" I knew that voice. Dennis Green. We attend the same church. We've prayed together many times. "Dennis, it's Raiden Miller from the East Side. Long time no see." There was a slight pause. "Oh, Raiden, haven't heard from you in a while. What's up?" "Well, my son, Ethan, is getting married. I wanted to ask, has the payment for the decorations been settled?" Dennis paused. Then he answered softly, "Not yet, Raiden. Only a 20% deposit. The rest was promised a week before the event, but we haven't heard anything. Ethan said that you would pay the remainder. He said his father was very supportive of this wedding." I smiled bitterly. "If I ask to postpone for a bit, is that possible, Dennis?" Dennis didn't answer right away. Then he said, slowly, carefully, "If it comes from you, Raiden, I will oblige." I hung up and called the next vendor, the caterer. The result was the same, minimal deposit, a promise of full payment from the groom's family, but no clarity yet. The photographer, the same. Even the sound system and the band hadn't been paid at all. They were just relying on Ethan's promise that everything would be sorted out. All the vendors believed it because Ethan said his father would take care of it. Me, the one who was never invited, the one who didn't even know which vendors they were using. The one who was just sent an invoice like a debt notice. That evening, I sat in the living room, turning off all the lights except for a small lamp in the corner. I looked at Evelyn's photo again. If she knew her son was doing this, what would she feel? I remembered one name, Fikri's equivalent, Mark Sullivan, Ethan's close friend from middle school. They used to come over all the time, playing catch in the yard, eating my wife's homemade cookies in the afternoon. Mark even stayed with us for a week once, when he had a problem with his family. I searched for Mark's number in my old phone. Luckily, it was still stored. I didn't know if the number was still active, but I tried. First ring, second, third. Hello. Mark's voice was the same, just a little deeper. Mark, this is Raiden Miller, Ethan's dad. There was a pause. Then his voice became warmer. Raiden, wow, I haven't heard from you in ages. Are you okay? I'm fine, son. Are you still in contact with Ethan? Mark fell silent. Then he answered softly. Not for a long time, sir. We had a falling out. What happened? He took a deep breath. In college, we worked together on a startup competition. The idea was mine, but he submitted it. When we won, my name wasn't mentioned at all. He took the prize money for himself. We haven't spoken since. I nodded slowly, though he couldn't see me. Mark, I need your help. What can I do, sir? I told him everything. About the invoice, the banishment, the unpaid vendors. Mark listened without interrupting. Occasionally he just murmured softly. When I finished, he said, Raiden, I work as a freelance photographer now, but I also often help with small investigations, domestic issues, property disputes. If you want, I can help. How can you help? I can go to the event, record everything that happens. If you want them to face the consequences, I can make sure everything is well documented. I fell silent. Did I really want to do this? Did I want to ruin my own son's happy day? But then I remembered his handwritten note again. Consider this your family's way of saying thank you. They started this, not me. All right, Mark. Let's meet tomorrow if you can. Sure, Raiden. I'll come to your place tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. I hung up. Then I sat back in the old chair, staring at the ceiling, cracked in several places. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat, brooding, and ensuring that this step I was taking was not a game. This wasn't about revenge. This was about dignity. It was about reminding them that a father is not an ATM that can be withdrawn from any time. That family is not a business transaction. At 3 a.m., my phone vibrated. A text from Ethan. Dad, we're waiting for the transfer. Don't be late. This is important. I read the message repeatedly. Then I typed a reply, but I didn't send it. I deleted it. I won't reply now. Let them wait. Let them start to worry. Because worry is the beginning of awareness. Part 2. The Confrontation and the CO Conspirator. The moment I told Mr. Henderson, the owner of Sleek Events, that I was banned from my own son's wedding, his face turned pale, as if he had swallowed sharp gravel. I woke up earlier than usual that morning. By 9 a.m., I was sitting on my porch, drinking bitter coffee while waiting for the time. Mark was scheduled to arrive at 10 a.m., but before that, I had an appointment with Mr. Henderson from Sleek Events. I had called him the previous afternoon, introducing myself as Ethan's father and saying, I want to clarify the payment. His voice immediately sounded cheerful on the phone. Ah, Mr. Miller, we've actually been waiting for you since yesterday. Ethan said you would confirm everything. We agreed to meet at 10 a.m. at their office on Georgetown Avenue. I prepared everything, a folder containing a photocopy of the invoice Ethan sent, notes on the vendors I had contacted, and my unwavering resolve. At 9:30 a.m. I showered, put on a long-sleeved batik shirt that was slightly faded, and black dress pants. I combed my greying hair and stood in front of the mirror for a moment. My face was wrinkled, my eyes tired, but my gaze was sharp. I am not a man who is easily defeated. I took the public bus to the Georgetown area. The streets were busy as usual. Horns blared, and the smell of exhaust fumes hung everywhere. I got off in front of a modern 2-story office building with large, clear glass windows, aesthetic planters, and a big sign reading Sleek Events in gold lettering. I walked in, greeted by a friendly young receptionist. "Good morning, sir. May I help you? I'm Raiden Miller. I have an appointment with Mr. Henderson." Her face brightened immediately. "Oh, Mr. Miller, please. Mr. Henderson is waiting upstairs." I climbed the shiny wooden staircase to the second floor. The room was spacious, the AC cold, and the walls were covered with photos of weddings they had handled. Everything looked luxurious, happy, and perfect. Mr. Henderson greeted me with a wide smile, a man in his 40s wearing glasses, a neat dress shirt, and an expensive watch. He extended his hand, and I shook it briefly. "Mr. Miller, please have a seat. So glad we finally get to meet in person. Ethan often speaks highly of you." I sat down on the plush sofa across from him. He presented a thick portfolio containing decor mock-ups, photos of the White Orchid Mountain Resort venue, and a detailed event rundown. Everything looked highly professional. "We've prepared everything according to Ethan and Annalise's requests. The venue is exceptional, sir. White Orchid is one of the best resorts in Aspen. The mountain view, the crisp air, perfect for outdoor photos." He paused, looking pleased. "The catering is exclusive too. Japanese-American fusion. We're using a chef who once worked at a 5-star Beverly Hills hotel. And the honeymoon? Wow, that resort in Maui is incredible. A suite with a private pool, an endless ocean view. They'll be very happy." I nodded slowly, letting him speak first. I paused, then opened the folder I had brought. I pulled out the photocopy of the invoice and placed it on the glass table between us. "This is what was sent to me." Mr. Henderson took it, glancing at it with a smile. "Yes, sir. This is the final breakdown we sent at Ethan's request. He said you would be handling everything." I looked him straight in the eye, but I was never consulted, never asked for permission, and I wasn't even invited to that wedding. His smile faded. He looked at me confused. "Excuse me, sir, not invited? What do you mean?" "I mean, Mr. Henderson, I am Ethan's biological father, and I will not be attending my own son's wedding because I was forbidden from coming. Yet, I was given this invoice, complete with a message as if I owe them something." Mr. Henderson's face changed. His professional smile vanished, replaced by tension. He took off his glasses and rubbed his temples. "Mr. Miller, this is serious, very serious." He was silent for a long time. Then he picked up his laptop, opened some files, and stared at the screen with a tense expression. "Ethan told us you were highly supportive of this marriage. He even said you wanted everything to be perfect, which is why you were willing to cover all the costs. He also mentioned the wire transfer would come through next week at the latest." I smiled bitterly. In that case, Ethan lied. Mr. Henderson put down his laptop. He started to look uneasy. His fingers tapped the table. "Sir, we've coordinated with many vendors. Some of them have already started preparations. If there's a payment issue, this could become very complicated." "I know, Mr. Henderson. That's why I'm here. I want all the vendors to know that until my son speaks with me directly, not a single penny will come from me. And if they insist, they should consider how easily an event can be called off." His face grew paler. He tried to diffuse the situation with a softer tone. "Mr. Miller, we deeply appreciate your honesty. But the problem is, some vendors are already billing us. We fronted some money for their deposits because we trusted Ethan's promise." I leaned forward slightly. "I've already contacted one of the vendors who knows me from church, Dennis Green, the owner of Petal and Canvas Design. They are ready to postpone or even pull out if I ask." Mr. Henderson took a deep breath. He was beginning to realize that the man sitting across from him was not just a resigned old father. "I have connections. I know who to call." He opened his laptop again, clicked a few files and turned the screen towards me. "Sir, this is proof of payment that has been received. A 20% deposit from an account in Annalise Thompson's family name. The remaining 80% is still pending. The contract clearly states it will be settled by the groom's family. I scrutinized the screen. It was true. There was an email from Ethan that read, "My dad is old school, he hates complications. Just send the invoice, and he'll take care of it later." Old school. I smiled wryly. Old school doesn't mean stupid, Mr. Henderson. He nodded slowly, not daring to argue. I looked closer at the email details. There were other emails in the same thread, one of which was CC'd to an email address with Annalise's first name. She knows. She knew I wasn't invited, but still allowed all this to proceed. This wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a deliberate exclusion. "Mr. Henderson, may I have copies of the contracts with the main vendors?" He hesitated, but finally nodded. "Yes, sir, but I beg you, please don't cause a huge scene. We are just carrying out work as ordered by the client. I won't humiliate my son publicly, Mr. Henderson. But I also won't stay silent when I'm treated as if I don't exist. I just want them to realize that family isn't about money. Family is about respect." Mr. Henderson nodded again, this time more profoundly. He printed a few documents, put them in a manila folder, and handed them to me. "These are the contracts with the caterer, decor, sound system, and photographer. None of them are paid in full, sir." I accepted the folder and stood up from the sofa. "Thank you, Mr. Henderson. I appreciate your honesty." As I walked toward the door, I heard him softly mutter to his staff sitting at the next desk. "The son is unbelievable, pretending everything is settled." I paused but didn't look back. Then I left the office, walked down the stairs, and out of the building. Outside, the Philadelphia air felt warm, even though it wasn't noon yet. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, watching the busy traffic. Buses passed, cars sped by, people preoccupied with their own affairs. I pulled the old phone from my pocket. I scrolled through old contacts, looking for a name I hadn't called in years. Mark Sullivan, middle school. I pressed his name and waited for the dial tone. On the third ring, he picked up. "Mr. Miller." "Mark, we're still on for today. I have a lot of information. Now we need to move on to the next step." "Understood, sir." "I'll be at your house this afternoon. I'll bring the equipment we might need." I hung up and walked to the nearest bus stop. I rode the same bus, sitting in the back, watching the road I had just traveled. In the manila folder on my lap, I had all the proof I needed. In my head, a plan was starting to form clearly. They thought I was alone. They were wrong. I still have people who respect me, people who know who I really am, not the version Ethan told the world. And soon, they would know too. They thought I was alone, but I still had witnesses to the past who knew the real Ethan. Mark arrived exactly at 1 p.m. I heard his motorcycle stop in front of the house, followed by a knock on the old wooden door. I opened the door, and there stood the young man who used to play marbles in this yard. He was now 32, the same age as Ethan, tall, thin, wearing a faded denim jacket and a large backpack that seemed to contain camera equipment. His hair was a bit long, his face tired, but his eyes were sharp. The eyes of a person who had seen the darker side of life. "Mr. Miller," he smiled faintly and briefly hugged me. A genuine, not superficial, hug. "Come in, son. Have you eaten?" "Yes, sir." I grabbed a sandwich near the market. We sat in the cramped living room. I made him a warm glass of sweet tea, placing it on the table along with a plate of leftover cookies from yesterday. Mark took one, biting into it slowly while looking around the house. "This house hasn't changed, Mr. Miller. It's just like I remember." "No money for renovations," I said, sitting in the old chair across from him. "Besides, why fix it up when I'm the only one left?" Mark nodded. Then his gaze fell on Evelyn's photo above the cabinet. "Mrs. Miller. I still remember she always made us iced tea when we came over. She was so kind." She was kind, maybe too kind, so much so that her own son has now forgotten all that kindness. Mark put down his cookie. His face turned serious. "Sir, you said on the phone you got a lot of information. Can you tell me what it is? I picked up the manila folder from Mr. Henderson, took out all the documents and laid them on the table. These are the contracts with the vendors. None of them are paid in full. Even the deposit is only 20%. And that was from Annalise's family. Ethan told all of them that I would pay the rest. Mark read the documents one by one, occasionally nodding or frowning. This is bad, sir. The total bill is almost $2 million. Ethan is seriously reckless. Not reckless, arrogant. He thought I would just obey. Mark looked at me. Mr. Miller, what do you need me to do? I'm ready. I took a deep breath. Mark, I don't want to ruin my son's wedding. I still have a conscience, but I want them to face the consequences of their actions. I want them to realize that family isn't about money. Can you help? Mark smiled faintly, but there was something in his eyes. Something dark, cold. Sir, before I answer, I want to tell you something. Do you know why Ethan and I stopped talking? I shook my head. You only said you had a falling out. Mark leaned back in the chair. His gaze was empty, as if recalling an old wound. In college, 6th semester, we worked together on a national startup competition. The idea was mine. I created the concept. I designed the business model. I stayed up for weeks. Ethan only helped with the presentation because he was more confident speaking in front of people. He paused, sipping his tea. When we won, we took first place. The prize was $50,000 and a business incubation opportunity. But during the announcement, Ethan went up to the stage alone. He accepted the trophy, accepted the check, and then gave a speech. As if it were all his idea. My name wasn't mentioned at all. I felt anger rising in my chest. After the event, I asked him why he didn't mention my name. He said, "We're a team, no need to argue over who contributed more," but he took all the money. He said he would manage it for shared business capital. I've never seen that money again, and the business never materialized. Mark laughed bitterly. Since then, I realized Ethan is a self-centered person. He uses people and then discards them when they're no longer useful. I was silent. My heart ached hearing that, but I wasn't surprised, because Ethan was doing the same thing to me, his own father. I'm sorry, son. It's my fault too. Maybe I failed as a father. Mark shook his head quickly. It's not your fault, sir. You set a good example, but Ethan chose his own path. He leaned forward. Sir, if you want me to help, I'm ready. Not just because I want to help you, but because I also want Ethan to know what betrayal feels like. I looked into Mark's eyes. There was resentment there, but also sincerity. How can you help? Mark opened his backpack, pulling out some equipment, a small camera, a microphone, a voice recorder, and even a lapel camera that could be attached to clothing. I work as a freelance photographer, but I also often help with small investigations, domestic cases, property disputes, sometimes infidelity cases. I know how to document things discreetly. He laid out all his tools on the table. If you want, I can attend their wedding. I'll record everything that happens. The vendors backing out, the confused guests, Ethan and Annalise's expressions when everything starts to fall apart. Later, if they try to lie or manipulate the story, we'll have visual evidence. I swallowed hard. Is that dangerous? No, sir. I've done this many times. I can go in as a regular guest or even pretend to be their backup photographer. No one will suspect anything. I was silent for a long time. Did I really want to do this? But then I remembered Ethan's message again. Consider this your family's way of saying thank you. They started this, not me. All right, Mark, let's do it. Mark smiled, then picked up his phone. Sir, I want to show you something. This might make you more certain. He opened a voice recording app, scrolled to an old file, and played it. A woman's voice was clearly audible, despite background noise. We'll only invite the important guests. Ethan's dad from the suburbs absolutely cannot show up. He won't fit the ambience of our event. The voice was Annalise's. Mark turned off the recording. I got this from a friend of mine who works at Ethan's condo. She accidentally overheard it while cleaning the room. She recorded it because she thought it was strange. When I told her about you, she sent me this file. I gripped my hands until my knuckles turned white. So it was true. This was no misunderstanding. It was intentional. Annalise knew, Ethan knew, and they agreed to eliminate me. Mark, keep that file safe. We might need it later. Will do, sir. Mark began to explain his plan. He would go to the White Orchid Resort on the day of the wedding. Bring hidden cameras. Record everything. He would also monitor the vendors' WhatsApp group. He had connections there through his photographer friends. If any vendors left or if chaos erupted, he would document everything. Sir, I also have connections to some local gossip blogs. If you want, after the event goes south, we can ensure this story gets out. Not to destroy Ethan, but to teach him a lesson. I shook my head. Not yet. I don't want to go that far. It's enough for them to face the consequences. If we need to publicize it, we'll reconsider later. Mark nodded. All right, sir. I'll follow your decision. We spent the afternoon rehearsing. Mark taught me how to use the voice recorder on my phone, how to save important conversations, how to take screenshots without being noticed. He even left me a lapel camera, just in case Ethan or Annalise comes home, sir. If they come and say something important, record it. Don't hesitate. This is not betrayal, it's self-preservation. That night, after Mark left, I sat alone in the dark living room. Only the small lamp in the corner was on. I looked at the old photo of young Ethan again. The one with the red cap holding my hand tightly. Forgive me, son, I whispered softly to the photo. But I have to do this, not because I'm cruel, but because you have to learn. At 9:36 p.m., my phone vibrated. A text message from Ethan. Dad, we need to talk. The woe said you withdrew your support. This could make us lose face. Please pick up the phone. I read the message repeatedly. Then the phone vibrated again. Incoming call. Ethan's name appeared on the screen. I didn't answer immediately. I let it ring a few times. Then I opened the voice recording app, pressed the record button, and finally answered. Hello, Dad. Finally picked up. Why did you tell the woe you wouldn't pay? This is making things difficult for us. His voice was high-pitched, panicked, but there was no respect in his tone. Only demand. Ethan, you sent me an invoice without talking to me first. I wasn't even invited to your wedding. What exactly do you want me to pay for? Dad, this isn't about being invited or not. This is about family responsibility. Every parent wants their child to be happy. I laughed bitterly. Family responsibility? Do you even know what family means, Ethan? Family is about being there for important moments, but you banned me from attending. There was a moment of silence, then his voice turned colder. Dad, don't be dramatic. It's just a formal event. The venue is exclusive. The guests are important people. You wouldn't be comfortable there. So I'm embarrassing to you. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean, Ethan? I'm not good enough to stand next to you. Me, the man who worked his back raw to pay for your school, your college. Now I'm just an ATM you can withdraw from any time? Silence again. Then I heard Annalise's voice in the background. Ethan, just tell him if he won't help, we'll find another way. Ethan sighed. Dad, Annalise said if you can't help, fine. But don't make it harder for us. Don't contact the vendors and make them doubt. I smiled wryly, even though he couldn't see it. I'm not making things harder for anyone. I'm just telling the truth. If you lied to them, that's your own responsibility. Dad, call me back when you're ready to talk nicely. If you just want to ask for money, don't bother. I hung up before he could respond. My hand trembled, not from fear, but from relief. I had finally said what needed to be said. I stopped the voice recorder, saved the file as Ethan call November 9th. Then I sent the file to Mark via WhatsApp. A few minutes later, Mark replied, "Received, sir. This is strong evidence. Keep it safe." I put the phone on the table and sat in the old chair again. Outside, the rain began to fall again. The water droplets tapped the metal roof with a soothing rhythm. I closed my eyes but didn't sleep. In the darkness, I prayed, not a prayer for retribution, but a prayer for Ethan to realize that his current life was built on betrayal and arrogance, not on a strong foundation. And if he won't realize it the easy way, perhaps he must realize it the hard way. They wanted to show off a luxurious party. I only wanted them to realize that money cannot buy respect. Part 3. The Storm and the Reckoning. November 17th, Sunday. The day they had been waiting for. The day that was supposed to be the happiest day of Ethan Miller's life. I woke up at 5 a.m. as usual. Morning prayer. Then I sat on the porch with a cup of bitter coffee. The sky was still dark, but I could already hear a slight drizzle beginning. Slow, but persistent. I looked up at the heavy overcast sky and smiled faintly. Rain, just as I had hoped. My phone vibrated. A message from Mark came in at 5:45 a.m. "Raiden, I'm on the road. Heavy rain since I left. It looks like it's going to be a long day." I replied briefly, "Be careful. Let me know when you arrive." I hadn't slept well all night. My mind was focused on what would happen today. Did I really want to do this? Was I being too cruel? But every time doubt arose, I remembered Ethan's handwriting on the invoice. I remembered Annalise's voice on the recording. Ethan's dad from the suburbs absolutely cannot show up. He won't fit the ambience. No, I wasn't cruel. They started this. By 6 a.m., the rain was heavy. I heard thunder rumble in the distance. The sound of drops on my rusted metal roof turned into a loud drumming. I imagined the conditions at the White Orchid Mountain Resort now. The roads must be slick, the fog thick, the temperature biting cold. At 7:15 a.m., Mark sent the first photo. A picture of the entrance gate to the White Orchid Resort, soaking wet. A few workers in plastic raincoats were running around, carrying decoration boxes. "Raiden, I've arrived. Chaos. The decor vendor only brought half the staff. Someone called in sick. Catering is also late." I sipped my cold coffee and replied, "Keep monitoring. Don't get caught." At 9 a.m., Mark sent a video, a short clip recorded from inside his car, parked a distance from the venue. Several people stood under a makeshift tent, looking confused and panicked. Someone was shouting, but the sound was drowned out by the rain. At 10 a.m., another message from Mark, "Raiden, the sound system got damaged by the rain. The technician hasn't arrived because the balance hasn't been paid. The band cancelled. They cited technical issues, but I know it's because they haven't been paid." I saved all the messages and photos, not to spread them, but for my private archive, to remind me that what happened today was no accident. It was a consequence. At 10:30 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. "Hello, Mr. Miller. This is Mr. Henderson from Sleek Events." His voice sounded panicked, his breathing ragged. "Sir, I apologize for disturbing you, but the situation here is critical. The decor team is incomplete, catering is delayed, the sound system is broken. Guests are arriving, but the venue is not ready." I remained silent for a moment. "Isn't that your responsibility as the wedding organizer, Mr. Henderson?" "Yes, sir. But the problem is, the payment is not finalized. Several vendors refuse to work fully without payment. I've called Ethan repeatedly, but he only says in a moment. Annalise's family is starting to get furious." I took a deep breath. "Mr. Henderson, I told you when we met, until my son speaks with me directly, I will not release any funds. If you accepted the job without guaranteed payment, that is your own risk." But sir, I'm sorry, Mr. Henderson, I cannot help. Good morning. I hung up. My hand didn't tremble. My heart didn't waver, because I knew this was what had to happen. At 11 a.m., Mark sent more photos. This time, pictures of guests standing on the resort grounds with black umbrellas, raincoats, faces confused and annoyed. Some were sitting on wet plastic chairs. Others stood in groups whispering, "Raiden, the guests from New York are protesting. They said they paid for expensive plane tickets and hotels, only for the event to be like this. Some are already leaving." I looked at the phone screen for a long time. I imagined Ethan's face now. He must be panicked, angry, ashamed. Good, let him taste it. At 11:40 a.m., a message from an unknown number arrived. "Mr. Miller, this is Annalise. Please help us. Everything is ruined. My parents are so angry. This is humiliating. If you can transfer the money now, I promise we will invite you to our next event." I read the message several times. Then I typed a reply. "Annalise, you said I couldn't show up because I wouldn't fit the ambience. Now you ask for help? I'm sorry, but I cannot help someone who doesn't respect me." I sent it, then blocked her number. At 12 p.m., Mark sent another video, this time a clip of Annalise in the bridal suite. Her makeup was running, her eyes puffy, her hair messy. She was crying while being comforted by her bridesmaids. The bottom of her wedding dress was soaked with mud and rainwater. "Raiden," I heard her tell Ethan, "you said everything was sorted. This isn't a dream wedding. It's a nightmare." I stared at the video in silence. I saw Annalise, who always appeared perfect on social media, now shattered and messy. I should have felt pity, but I didn't. She was a co-conspirator in my exclusion. At 12:30 p.m., a message from Mark Raiden. "The local gossip blogs are already reposting the video and photos. The headline is, 'Luxury Wedding Turns into Disaster.' The comment section is blowing up. Many are laughing." I hadn't asked Mark to spread the news, but it seemed the story had leaked on its own. Perhaps from an annoyed guest, perhaps from a frustrated vendor. Whatever the source, now everyone knew. At 1 p.m., my phone rang again. This time, from Ethan's number. I let it ring until it stopped. He called again. I let it ring again. On the third call, I answered. "Dad?" His voice was cracked, like a man about to cry. "Please, Dad, we need help. Everything is ruined. Vendors are leaving, guests are going home. Annalise's family is furious. This isn't just about a party. It's about dignity." "Dignity?" I laughed bitterly. "You only remember dignity now. When you banned me, when you said I wasn't suitable for your fancy event, where was my dignity then?" "Dad, I'm sorry. I was wrong. But please, now is not the time to talk about that. Our honeymoon deposit is non-refundable. If this event fails, everything is lost." I could hear Annalise crying loudly in the background. "Ethan, I am not a bank. I am not an ATM. If you want my help, you have to first learn how to respect me. And now, it's too late. Dad, please." I hung up, then turned off my phone completely. I didn't want to be disturbed anymore. I sat on the porch, the rain still pouring heavily. The cold wind hit my face. But I didn't go inside. I savored the sound of the rain, savoring the strange tranquility that emerged amidst the storm happening elsewhere. Later that afternoon, around 4 p.m., Mark came to the house. His clothes were soaked, his face tired, but his eyes sparkled. "Raiden, I documented everything. The event was cancelled. The ceremony was rushed. Just the officiant and 2 witnesses. No reception. Guests went home. Annalise's family left first, looking absolutely furious." I nodded slowly. "Thank you, Mark. Sir, don't you want to see the photos and videos?" I shook my head. "No need. I already know what happened. That's enough." Mark sat on the chair next to mine, also watching the rain. "Sir, I got information from my vendor friends. Annalise's family cancelled the honeymoon. Their reputation is stained because they were seen as unable to manage their own event. Many business associates are starting to hesitate to work with them. I didn't answer. My heart felt heavy hearing that, but I had no regrets. Mr. Miller, do you feel guilty? I looked at Mark. Guilty? No. Sad? Yes. But sometimes people need to fall first before they can learn to stand up properly. Mark nodded. I agree, sir. We sat in silence for a long time. Only the sound of the rain filled the quiet. Then Mark said goodbye. I was alone again on the cold porch. That night, after evening prayer, I sat in the living room. I looked at Evelyn's photo. I've done what I had to do, I whispered. I hope you understand. At 9:12 p.m., there was a loud knock on the door. I got up, walked slowly to the door, and opened the curtain slightly to see who it was. Standing under the downpour were two soaking figures, Ethan and Annalise. Their faces were pale, their eyes puffy, their clothes wet. Annalise was still wearing the remnants of her wedding gown, now dirty and soggy, covered with a plastic raincoat. Ethan wore a white shirt that was no longer white. They stood there, silent, staring at my door, waiting for me to open it. When I did open the door, there was no more pride or arrogance on their faces. Only a pair of human beings defeated by their own choices. I stood behind the door for a long time, watching them through the crack in the curtain. The rain grew heavier, lightning flashed in the distance. But they didn't move, just stood there, drenched, waiting. Ethan is my son, my own flesh and blood, the child I carried when he had a high fever in the middle of the night, the one I taught to ride a bike until my knees were scraped from running alongside him, the one I bought his first book with overtime money. But that same child also sent me a bill like a debt, forbade me from attending the most important day of his life, and considered me only a low-key investor. I took a deep breath, then opened the door halfway, just enough for us to see each other. Ethan lifted his face. His eyes were red, his face pale, his lips trembling, either from the cold or from holding back tears. Annalise stood beside him, head bowed, not daring to look at me. Dad, Ethan's voice was soft, hoarse. We're sorry, we were wrong. I didn't answer. I just stood there, looking at them. Annalise lifted her face slightly, tears mixed with rainwater on her cheeks. Mr. Miller, we've run out of time and money. We don't know what to do anymore. Can you please help us sort this out? I smiled faintly, bitterly. Help? Now you ask for help? Ethan stepped forward. Dad, I know I was wrong. I hurt you. But please, now is not the time to talk about that. We need help. Vendors are still calling. Annalise's family is so angry. The honeymoon is completely cancelled. If you could just transfer the money... Stop. I cut him off. If I didn't have the money, would you still be standing here? Ethan froze, unable to answer. Annalise bowed her head lower. Answer me, Ethan. If your father was just a poor retiree who had nothing, would you still come to this house? Would you still remember your father existed? Ethan opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He knew the answer. We both did. I stepped back slightly, leaning against the doorframe. Ethan, do you remember when you were 10 years old, you asked for a pair of Nike sneakers? They cost $250. My salary back then was only $2,200 a month, but I bought them anyway because you said you needed them for practice. Ethan looked at me. Tears began to fall down his cheeks. Do you remember in college when your laptop broke? You called me late at night, crying because your assignment wasn't finished. I immediately took out a loan from the credit union so you could buy a new one the next day. I took a breath. My voice started to tremble, but I controlled it. Do you remember when your mother was sick? I sold my truck, mortgaged the house, worked overtime until my back ached, all to extend her time in the hospital? Ethan was crying now, his sobs mixed with the sound of the rain. And now, You send me an invoice like I'm a bank. You banned me from your wedding because I wouldn't fit your luxury event. You told the vendors that I would cover all the costs, even though you knew I didn't have that much money. Annalise began to sob. Mr. Miller, forgive us. We were wrong. We were too greedy, too arrogant. Annalise, I stared at her sharply. You were the one who said Ethan's dad from the suburbs absolutely cannot show up. You remember saying that? Her face was ashen. She looked at me with wide eyes. Sir, did you hear that? I have the recording. Your voice is clear. She collapsed to her knees, covering her face with her hands, crying loudly. Ethan looked at me with a shattered expression. Dad, I didn't know she said that. You did know, Ethan. You must have known, because you agreed not to invite your father. You sent the invoice without talking first. You told everyone I would cover all the costs, even though you never even asked if I was willing. Ethan shook his head hard. Tears flowed profusely. I was wrong, Dad. I admit I was wrong. But please, don't leave us like this. We've lost everything. Our reputation is ruined. Annalise's family is furious. Vendors are all demanding payment. And you think that's my fault? No, not your fault. It's my fault. All my fault. He stepped forward again, nearly entering the house, but I stopped him with my hand. Ethan, do you know the difference between your father and you? He looked at me, waiting. When I didn't have money, I still found a way to give you the best. But when you needed money, you treated your father like an ATM. You forgot. Family is not a transaction. Family is about respect. Annalise got up from her knees, looking at me with a face full of regret. Sir, we can change everything. We promise we'll be better. We'll respect you. Now, I cut her off again. Now that everything is ruined, now you want to respect me. Now that you've lost everything, now you remember your father exists. Silence. Only the sound of the rain and their sobs. I looked at Ethan one last time, my son, the child I loved more than my own life. But now, he stood before me as a stranger who only remembered me when he needed something. If this wedding failed, it's not because your father didn't help, it's because you forgot. Family is not about funds. Family is about being there for important moments. It's about respect. It's about not humiliating the person who sacrificed everything for you. Ethan fell to his knees. His hand grabbed the hem of my wet shirt. Dad, please don't be like this. I'm your son. I'm still your son. I looked down at him. You are my son, but you forgot how to be one. I gently released his hand from my shirt. Then I stepped back, my hand on the doorknob. Ethan, Annalise, go home, find a hotel, rest. Think carefully about what you have done. If one day you truly realize your mistake, not because you need money, but because you genuinely understand your error, this door can still be opened. But today, I cannot help you. Dad! I closed the door slowly but firmly, not slammed, just closed, like closing a painful chapter. I stood behind the door, listening to their cries outside, mixed with the sound of the rain. I closed my eyes. My own tears began to fall. But I didn't open the door again. A few minutes later, I heard the sound of footsteps fading away. They were gone. I walked to the living room, sat in that old chair, staring blankly ahead. My hands were shaking. My heart ached, but I knew this was what I had to do. Epilogue: the photo. A few days later, the videos and photos of the disastrous wedding went viral on social media. Local news portals covered it with sensational headlines. Gossip accounts discussed it relentlessly. The comments were full of mockery, sarcasm, and some pity. Mark sent a message. Raiden, all the vendors know who was really at fault. They won't trust Ethan again, and I got a lot of new jobs from their referrals. Thank you for standing firm, sir. Annalise's family cancelled all honeymoon plans. Their reputation among business circles was tarnished. Several business partners began to withdraw. Ethan and Annalise had to cover all the outstanding bills themselves. They sold some belongings, took out bank loans, and struggled to survive. I didn't feel joy seeing that, but I also had no regrets. 2 weeks after the incident, I was sitting on the porch again one evening. The sky was clear, full of stars. I drank sweet tea staring at the quiet street in front of the house. I remembered Ethan's face when he fell to his knees. I remembered his pleading voice. But I also remembered his voice on the phone back in 2016. If you had been more successful, maybe Mom could have been treated at a better hospital. Justice sometimes comes not from a court of law. Sometimes it comes from rain they couldn't control, from vendors who refused to be lied to, from dignity that refused to be trampled anymore. I took the old photo album from the cabinet, sat back on the porch, and opened it page by page. Photos of young Ethan at his college graduation. Ethan when he first got a job. All happy moments that now felt bittersweet. I slowly closed the album, putting it back in the cabinet. 2 weeks later, as I was cleaning the yard, the postman came. He handed me a small white envelope with no sender name. Only my address was written in handwriting I recognized, Ethan's handwriting. I opened the envelope on the porch. Inside, there was only one photo. A picture of Ethan sitting alone at a bus stop under the rain, his face empty, staring at the street. On the back of the photo was a handwritten note in slightly faded blue ink. If I realize my mistake later, will there still be a place for me to come back to? I looked at the photo for a long time. Then I turned it over again, reading the words repeatedly. My heart ached, but I didn't cry. I placed the photo inside the old album, on a blank page at the back. Then I closed the album again. I walked inside, sat in my old chair, and looked at Evelyn's photo above the cabinet. He's beginning to realize, I whispered softly, but I don't know if I'm ready to forgive. Outside, the sky was clear. No rain, no thunder, just a quiet afternoon, as usual. But inside my chest, a storm was still slowly raging, a storm between a father's love and a dignity that had been too often crushed, and I knew that storm would not subside any time soon. Perhaps one day, when Ethan truly changes, when he comes back not because he needs something, but because he understands his error, that door will open again. But today, the door remains closed, and I am at peace with that decision.